This is Right on the Money with Tom Mosley, founder of Mosley Wealth Management.
Our mission at Mosley Wealth Management is to help people make sure they never run out of income the rest of their life and they pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes.
Since 1995, Tom Mosley and his team have been creating comprehensive, custom financial plans to help you preserve what you've earned and pursue what you've envisioned.
In retirement, a lot of people have built a great lump sum. We call that your lumber yard. But you need a blueprint to put that lumber yard into a plan that you can build a retirement house to live in.
What's on your mind this week, Southern California? The stock market, taxes, inflation, income, Social Security, how to ease into the life of your dreams? Let's discover conservative financial strategies starting right now. This is your Right on the Money Radio Hour with Tom Mosley.
And a very happy weekend to you. You are listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California. And I'm your host, Kristen Oakley. We're so glad you're joining us today. Each week, this show is dedicated to providing you with retirement planning solutions. We've got another great conversation for you this weekend. Tom, my friend, always good to be here with you. How are you this week?
I'm doing well, excited about this holiday weekend. Let's have a good one.
Yes, for sure. Well, we are going to be talking about something that can often seem like a Debbie Downer. We're going to be talking about taxes. But the good news is there are proactive solutions so that you don't have to pay any more to the IRS than you are legally required to pay. We're going to have a strong focus on that today because it seems like, for so many folks, Tom, taxes are coming as a complete surprise when they are in retirement. I think there's a big focus on, of course, doing our taxes every year, tax preparation. How can I save on my tax bill for this current year? But when we get to retirement, taxes get a lot more complicated. And if we're not careful, it can be a huge problem. We often refer to it as a ticking tax time bomb. So we're going to talk about that today. And I know you have a lot to say about this. This is one of the things that really sets you and the team of Mosley Wealth Management apart is that you engage in strategic tax planning for your clients.
Yeah, we do. In June the 8th of 1995, I started my trek. I guess I'm mentioning that a lot because I'm coming up, in a couple of weeks here on the 30th anniversary of being in the business.
It's a big deal. It should be celebrated.
It should be. But when I started, I had been in the ministry for 19 years, and many times in the churches where I served, I had been placed in charge of benevolence. Mm-hmm. Benevolence is when people need money for something and they come to the church. They're either members or not members. And I can remember so distinctly, Kristen, I wish I remember this guy's name. He was a big, tall, probably 6'8", probably 300 pounds with not an ounce of fat on his body, oil field worker from Odessa, Texas. And he's standing there with a little wife that maybe weighed 100 pounds and she had cancer and she looked tired and she looked weary. And he looked at me and he said, I asked, why are you here? Mm-hmm. And I remember a tear rolling down that big crusty cheek, and he looked at me and he said, we're here because we're trying to decide whether to buy food or medicine. And they literally didn't have enough money for both, and she had a cancer treatment that she needed, and they couldn't afford it. And I'm glad to say our church was able to help them and help her get that treatment. I'm sad to say she did not live and for a very long period of time because she had really severe cancer. But that always impressed me and impressed upon my heart that once I got into financial services in 1995, I wanted to make sure that people had sufficient income the rest of their life.
Yes.
And then within 2 years, it began to hit me that taxes were the biggest thing that they were taking people's money, because if you've got $1 million in a 401k, and people back then didn't have 1 million so much as they had $400,000 in a 401k or 350 or 500,000, it wasn't all their money.
Right.
Because when they started spending that money, they had to, Uncle Sam got his portion of it. So we added to our mission for my company. Not only do we exist to help people have sufficient income the rest of their life, but number two, that they pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes. Even in today's world, when the presidential election was going on last year, and one of the candidates was saying that if elected, they would work to do away with the taxes on Social Security. And I think that's a great idea, but I am shocked at how many people came to our Social Security workshops every single week and were shocked the fact that they had to pay tax on Social Security.
Right.
Because you have to pay tax on income in retirement. You have to pay tax on capital gains in retirement. You have to pay tax on Social Security in retirement. You have to pay tax on your pension in retirement. And that's a public or a company annuity. If you have your own private annuity, many times if it's in an IRA, you pay tax on all of that money that comes out like any IRA. Or if you're taking money out of an annuity, you pay tax on the gain of that annuity when you take in. It's last in, first out. We'll talk about that later and explain what that means. And you have to pay tax on your Social Security if it goes over a certain amount. And you have to pay property tax and sales tax and car tax and tag tax.
And required minimum distributions.
Yeah, and even if you don't need it, you have to pay required minimum distributions at age 73. So taxes, it almost is like they're just beginning when you retire. And one of the things that separates us from the big box firms so big, you need to listen to the show, because many times you've worked with one of the F companies, and I'm not calling them any bad names. That's what their name starts with. They're investment companies, but they'll refuse to work with you on Roth conversions or tax conversions and things like that. Because if you've got $100,000 in a regular IRA and you pay 22% tax on it to get it converted over into a Roth where you never get taxed on it again, it's probably greatly to your advantage. That company gets to bill you on $78,000 rather than $100,000. So they've come out in many of the big box firms and say, hey, we don't want to do Roth conversions. They're confusing. They're hard to manage, to work with. You got to make sure and do them right. Yes, all of those things are true, but we do them at Mosley Wealth Management because it puts you in a better position to just in one small way avoid the whole mountain of tax coming down on you in an avalanche when you get to retirement. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's show.
Yes. Wow. A lot was just said there. We've got to unpack some of it. Let's talk about, I think the issue is a lot of folks were sold a bill of goods back when things like 401ks and traditional IRAs were created, because we were told, okay, you're going to put this money into this account, and the year that you make that contribution, you're going to get a tax break for that year, right? Okay.
True story.
Yep.
True story. Sounds good.
It sounds great, right?
Yeah.
The money's going to grow tax deferred. Guess what? That sounds really good too, right? And then when you go to pull the money out in retirement, you should be in a lower tax bracket. So you'll pay less tax on it. That's where the problem comes in. Most folks are not finding themselves in a lower tax bracket. Can you dispel that myth? I mean, you already alluded to it, but why is that a myth? Why is that not true?
Well, so many people they do simple math, Kristen. They say, when my husband passes away, if my wife passes away before me, I'll only spend half as much because there'll just be one of me. Okay. Tell that to your mortgage company. Tell that to your auto loan. Tell that to the gas pump. Tell that to the grocery store. Yeah. But if you're married, don't be under the myth that it's going to cost you half as much when there's only one of you. It's going to cost you between an average of 85 to 90% for one of you to live than it takes for two of you to live. And you're going to lose your married filing jointly tax bracket. You're going to lose your Social Security, the lower Social Security, the throwaway Social Security is going to go away, whichever one of you is there. And you're going to find what every one of you who are out there who are single are shaking your head already saying, taxes are tough, bills are tough, making a living is tough when there's only one of you, because most of you who are married are going to get back down to the point where there's only one of you.
Because the tax brackets change when you're single. That's where you're
Yeah.
going with this. Right.
Well, you get to the 22% tax bracket as a married couple when you're around $100,000 of adjusted gross income.
hmm
You get to the 22% tax bracket when you're around $50,000 when you're single, right? Single people,
hmm
you're understanding what I'm talking about. Married folks, after one spouse passes away, that's what you're going to be looking at. And it's not a lower tax bracket. You don't have less needs. You're still there. And let me ask for those two people that are in the entire Southern California who legitimately think that taxes are going to be lower in the future than they are right now with a $36 trillion debt. Now, I know all the movement to lower taxes and it all sounds great. And let's have a tax cut. That all sounds great. But unless we have a corresponding dramatic spending cut, the tax cut is only going to drive up that deficit, and that deficit eventually is going to cost us more and more and more tax. So you're living under an illusion if you believe that that's really going to spur to the point where we can dig out of that big of hole of $36 trillion. Hey, I don't know what tax rates are going to go to. I know what they are right now. I know what they're proposed to go to, and I know how to help you negotiate this so that that mountain of tax that's going to come down on you, we're able to position you better for negotiating those taxes. But, to get our help, you can't just listen to us on the radio. You've got to call, come in, sit down with one of our advisors, and let us build you a retirement blueprint that right in the middle of it is taxes. And we'll deal with your taxes in the most efficient way possible so that you pay as little as you legally are required to pay.
Tom, thank you so much. That number to call to schedule your time to come in and receive your very own complimentary retirement blueprint is 888-930-5609. This is for no cost, no charge, no obligation. We invite you to come in and sit down with one of the all-star advisors from Mosley Wealth Management, and they will build you your very own complimentary written financial plan. It starts with you claiming this complimentary retirement blueprint. 888-930-5609. Stay with us. We've got a lot more to talk about on today's show regarding the tax avalanche. And the good news is we have some solutions and strategies so that you don't have to pay any more to the IRS than you are legally required to pay. Stay with us to find out what those are right after this.
In retirement, which accounts do you take from first to pay your monthly expenses? Your former employer plans like 401ks or 457s, your IRAs or Roth accounts, investment accounts or savings accounts? Do you use the growth from your mutual funds, ETFs, or bond funds first? Did you sell your business to create income, or do you have life insurance or annuity options? Should you start your Social Security benefits and let your investments grow, or should you take from your investments and let your Social Security grow? Are you unclear if you have a retirement income strategy at all? You have accumulated assets for retirement for years. Now you need an efficient strategy to make certain these assets work together and last as long as you need them to. Call Right on the Money with Tom Mosley and ask for your very own complimentary retirement income review. 888-930-5609. Make sure your assets will go the distance for you in retirement. Call Right on the Money and Tom Mosley and ask for your complimentary retirement income review. 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609.
Welcome back, Southern California. You're listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley. We're so glad you're joining us today. We are calling today's episode the Tax Avalanche Show. And if you're just tuning in and joining us, Tom did such a great job of explaining in the first segment all the ways that taxes get more complicated and how they can compound in your retirement if you're not careful. One of the things that we talk a lot about on the show is market risk. And I think folks listening, of course, are very accustomed to talking about that, how, your money invested in the markets, it can go up, it can go down like a roller coaster. But there's a different type of risk that really ties into our conversation today, and that's legislative risk. And so why don't you first define what legislative risk is, and then we want to specifically talk about some ways that tax rules and laws have changed over the last few years that are compounding this tax problem for folks in retirement.
Well, what happens if you set your plan down and 5 years later, all the rules change? That's what a legislative act can do to the tax laws. And I want to sort of delve into the Secure Act that was passed in December the 19th or December the 20th of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And right before COVID, we had the Secure Act. And it was such a convoluted law that it wasn't until July of last year, 2024, that they finally came out with a 284-page explanation of the law so that all the mess ups that are in the law were straightened out, except
Mm-hmm.
they weren't. Because
Right.
even the mess ups now are there. So, you had your plan set, you knew what you were going to do in taxes, and all of a sudden they changed the rules. Let me say something really quickly. Every one of my advisors who's been with me at least 6 months has done training with 𝗏𝗏𝘁𝗏. Probably means nothing to most of you. 𝗏𝗏𝘁𝗏 is known as America's authority on IRAs and 401ks and their taxation. New York, CPA, tax attorney, advisor. And 𝗏𝗏𝘁𝗏, I've been with him for around 10 years now. I'm what's known as a master elite advisor with him,
Mm-hmm.
which means for about 10 years, I've trained with him 4 days a year. What do those trainings involve? It involves about a 250 to 300 page manual every time we sit down, twice a year for 2 days, 4 days a year. And we start on page 1 and we go through IRS rulings, tax law changes. Because if you've got an advisor that is more concerned with his handicap on the golf course than he is what's happening with tax laws, you're going to get in trouble. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to have somebody make a mistake in their recommendation to you. Again, in the first segment, we talked about some of the big box firms won't even deal with tax planning with their people in depth. And it's because it's complicated. We know it's complicated. That's why I've taken the time and the money to be a master elite advisor with the authority who's in America on tax laws. I'm not a CPA. Don't misunderstand that. I don't know everything, but I do know somebody who can find out the answer to everything. And that's what you get when you deal with Mosley Wealth Management and all of our advisors who have trained with 𝗏𝗏𝘁𝗏. So back to the legislative risk. When they change the law, when are you going to find out about it? Are you
Mm-hmm.
going to find out about it through TikTok? Are you going to find out about it through social media? Are you going to find out about it through Bob at the water cooler? You better find out about it from your tax professional, your financial planning professional that you're dealing with. Now let's look at the Secure Act. They came out and they were very proud to tell you something you hear ringing in the news now. We are lowering tax rates. We are not adding to your taxes. We haven't raised tax. And they champion that all the time, and they'll do anything they can to say they haven't raised tax. Let's take the Secure Act of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
It quote, did not raise tax, but here's something that it did do. What it did do was change your deductions.
Mm-hmm.
It drastically increased your individual deductions and your married filing jointly deductions for the two of you if you're married. But it eliminated you being able to claim any of your children. So therefore, if you have more than one child at home, you actually have a lower deduction because of what the Secure Act did in lowering those amounts. The Secure Act and the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, some of these came through that as well. Let's talk about the taxation of your IRA.
Mm-hmm.
It did not raise taxes, but what it did was it forced your heirs to take that IRA and completely deplete it in 10 years, or in some cases, if they're not a direct child or a spouse, to directly, and there's a couple of other exceptions to this, but if it's left to a nephew or to a niece, that has to be depleted in 5 years. What does that mean? That means that you have to take that money that you inherited, praise God for the money that you inherited, but you have to deplete that IRA in 5 years. So you can thank the Lord for that uncle or aunt that left you the money, but if you're not that direct child of that IRA and you're the beneficiary of it, you've got a 5-year window to take that money out. Or if it's left into a trust, a 5-year window to take that money out. What that does is forces, Kristen, more money to come out each of those years. And what does that do? It adds to the income tax of the beneficiary.
Yes.
So I think it was so funny. I'll never forget the news conference, and I saw a reel of it one time where the first guy who spoke said, "We haven't raised your taxes." And the next person who spoke said, "It'll add $388 billion to the Treasury over the next 10 years.
Right.
Well, how's that money coming to them? Through taxes. So you've got to be careful with legislative changes. Don't read them for the news media value, whether it's the right news media or the left news media. And you know exactly what I'm talking about out there, okay? Whatever side it is, understand that they may be telling you that this is the greatest thing since peanut butter and jelly, but it may be peanut butter on your finger when you don't want to have peanut butter on your finger. You understand what I'm saying? It may make a mess of your taxes. You have, when it comes to this avalanche that's coming, the rules are changing. And Kristen, it seems like they're changing at such a rapid pace. They've already had a Secure Act 2.0.
I know, at the end of 2022. Yep.
Even before they explained the Secure Act 1.0. So they're building on a foundation that needed an explanation. So when does the Secure Act 2.0 explanation come out? And what are the changes? And what happens when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act really, we see what replaces it this year, because that expires at the end of this year. You can't afford to be working with a tax dummy. You've got to be working with somebody who stays up with all of the changes to the accounts that they're managing when it comes to IRAs, 401ks, and all of those things that they're managing for you. The tax avalanche is coming. Don't get buried by it.
Correct. And I would say, too, the other big thing that I've heard folks say, you know, one of the things that the Secure Act did was it delayed the starting age for required minimum distributions. So it used to be age 70 and a half, then it went up to age 72, now it's age 73. And for people who are born after the year 1960, right, it's going to be age 75. Do I have my math correct on that?
You have your math correct, but in the seminars, when I ask what's the full retirement age for required minimum distributions, people are like, I don't know. It's, you know, and they'll guess all three of those.
Yes, right.
Because
so that's
it's changed
that's
so
another
many times.
example. But here's the
Yes.
thing. Some folks I've heard say, well, that was so good of them. They delayed it so I don't have to take the money out sooner, right? That's a good thing for us. No, they did that because it was in their best interest, because they know the longer the money stays in that account, the more it's going to grow, which means the later you take it out, guess what? The more you're going to pay in tax, right?
Right, exactly, because you're going to have to take a bigger chunk out every year. Here's another thing they did. The Secure Act, one of the terms that Ed Slott himself uses about the Secure Act, he calls it the Rothification of America's retirement plan, okay? Think about that, the Rothification. A Roth is where you pay the tax now on the money that goes into that Roth IRA. And many of you now have, since 2019 in the Secure Act, they've added, I have one at the 401k at my company here, a Roth side to that 401k where you've got the option to pay the tax now and never have to pay the tax on it again. That's what a Roth means and how a Roth works. Well, guess when the government gets their money if you put the money into a Roth? You get it now.
Right.
So what are they doing long term? They're really taking a lot of money out of the Treasury that they would have had if they'd have just left the IRAs alone, and that would have grown over the years. They would have really gotten a lot more money later on when they need it more. But like everything else in our society, they need the money now. They need to get it now, you know? So it is amazing. And, you know, when we come back, we want to really delve into the difference in tax planning and tax preparation. And we've touched all around it in this segment and the previous segment. But you need to be working with somebody who's alert to tax changes and who's doing real tax planning. And when we come back, you might be surprised who's not doing tax planning and who is doing tax planning and who really is just a tax preparer. So you really need to stay for that. But here's the point. Do you want to avoid paying taxes? If you enjoy paying taxes, turn the radio off, go do something else. But if you'd like to pay as little as you're legally required to pay in taxes, you need to call us and you need to at least let us show you what a blueprint would look for you based on what you have.
And it's completely free. The invitation is for you to come in and sit down with one of the all-star advisors from 𝗏𝗟𝗡 Wealth Management, and they will build you your very own complimentary retirement blueprint from scratch based on your individual situation. But you have to pick up the phone and call, and that number to call to schedule yours is 888-930-5609. Again, that's 888-930-5609. Stay with us. We're going to talk about some more tax planning solutions for you right after this.
Get your retirement right on the money with Tom Mosley. Call 888-930-5609 for your no-cost appointment. 888-930-5609.
Stock market losses have you worried? Claim your free portfolio risk report and protection review from Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management. 888-930-5609. If the recent market volatility has you worried about your retirement investments, you're not alone. Right now is the time to take action to protect your investments. Surely markets do not always rise, but if you are in your 50s, 60s, or 70s, you don't have the same time to make up for portfolio losses as you did in your 30s and 40s. Claim your free portfolio risk report from Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management. 888-930-5609. Your portfolio risk report will provide action steps of what you could do to protect your wealth from current market swings. Get your free portfolio risk report right now. Call financial advisor Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management. 888-930-5609.
Welcome back. You're listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California, and I'm your host, Kristen Oakley. Today, we are talking all about the tax avalanche that's looming for your retirement. We want you to be aware, we want you to be prepared, and we want you to be able to not pay any more to the IRS than you are legally required to pay. So we're going to dive back into that conversation. But before we do, it's that time of the week where we get to share with you about the upcoming live events happening throughout Southern California, where you're able to come completely for free, receive some more solid financial education from Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management. But here's the good news. No matter when you're listening to the show, you can actually see the list of upcoming events in real time by visiting the website. That website to go to is mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's MOSLEY wealthmanagement.com. There's an events tab. You can click on it, see which events are coming up in your area and which one would be most convenient for you. And again, these events are completely free for you to register and attend. We do ask, however, that you go ahead and register ahead of time so that the team can be prepared for you. They want to make sure they have enough seats, have enough materials printed out so you can each get your own copy. So again, you can go see the list of current events and sign up for yours by visiting mosleywealthmanagement.com. All right, Tom, it's time to dive back into our tax conversation. And before we pick back up with solutions, in case someone's just joining us, I think it's really important, again, just to explain for folks the difference between engaging in tax preparation and engaging in strategic tax planning. And you teased before the break that some folks might be surprised to find out who is not engaging in tax planning. So talk to us about that.
Well, I love my CPA. He and I used to serve on a ministry team together in our church for like 7 years. And he has since moved to Nashville, but he still does all my taxes and my bookkeeping and things because thank God with the internet, you can have access to those kind of things and you don't have to, come in every week to look at the books or anything like that. But my CPA only does tax preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, I mean, you would think if anybody's going to do tax planning, it's going to be the CPA. But my CPA only does tax preparation because he's always asking me, hey, get your stuff in February. And I got your stuff ready. He calls me and tells me that in March. And it's always the tax 1040 for last year on my 2 businesses and then my personal tax.
Mm-hmm.
He always does that, and he's great at it, and he doesn't make mistakes, but he's always looking in the rear view mirror. He's taking a micro view of taxation. He's only looking at the short picture, the little picture, okay? He's only looking at 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're driving down the road of life, I like to look at it, Kristen, like he's looking in the rear view mirror.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
He's always looking at last year. I want somebody, when they're doing tax planning for me, and we do for our clients, we look through the windshield.
Mm-hmm.
We look down the road of retirement and we say, in the next 10, 15, 20 years, how much tax are George and Myrtle going to have to pay as they go through retirement together? And if we can see the tax rates, see the tax brackets as they are right now, see some kind of tax advantage as it is right now, then if we can get you to pay more tax now, rather than just pay it out according to the government plan, if we can develop the George and Myrtle plan so that you pay the taxes according to your terms, all legally, all according to the current rules, if they're to your advantage, then you're going to save more money in the long run. That's what we're here to do. Now, let me give you some for instances of this, okay?
Yep.
In 2025, the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that lowered taxes is still in effect. We've heard, we've seen, they've tried, maybe they have. We'll have to see the way it pans out, but maybe they do keep those taxes for 2026. But if not, it's already written in stone that they go back to where they were in 2016 and before that. So, and some people say, for political motivation, I believe that it's only going to impact the billionaires in a positive way, or it's only going to impact that's the only law that it's going to help. Well, the billionaires go up, the millionaires go up, the thousandaires go up, and the hundredaires go up, and that the 10% bracket goes to 12, the 12 goes to 15, the 22 goes to 25, the 24 goes back up to 28, the 35 goes back up to 37, 39, whatever it goes up. Every bracket goes up. So everybody's going to be affected. So if I wanted to come to you and say, taxes right now, Kristen, are on sale for this year, they are. So this is a great time for you to deal with your taxes, because we know they're as low as they will be next year, and they probably or might be lower. And if they do change the law and they say that taxes aren't going to go up, where else are they going to hit us? What kind of deductions are they going to take away from us? What kind of, is it going to be the state and local income tax, the SALT deductions that they'll take away? Will they raise those? Or how will they hit us so that they're still drawing more money out of us and they can still say that they haven't raised taxes? So now is a great time to pay as much tax as you possibly can. Say, how would that work? Well, number one, if I was still working, I would really look into the possibility of changing my contribution to my 401k. Everybody take a deep breath and take a swallow here, okay? Everybody take a deep breath. And I might pay more tax now because I know the rates are low, to put as much money as I can this year in my retirement plan at work into the Roth side, that I'll never pay tax on it again after I pay tax on it this year, and not the regular side. Yes, you're going to pay more tax on it now, but you'll never pay tax on it again during your working career as it grows, or when you move it out of that, like most people do, into a Roth IRA, you'll never pay tax on it again. Your surviving beneficiaries will never pay tax on it again. It will always be tax-free, never, once you get it into the Roth. So that's just one illustration of it. And If you pay more tax now in lower overall tax brackets, you're paying lower income tax this year because the brackets are 2 to 4% lower this year than they likely will be next year. And what I'm talking about right now, in case you don't recognize it, is real tax planning and
Mm-hmm.
tax strategizing so that you build your own plan and so that you work toward a plan that's to your advantage, that's totally within the laws of our tax, of the IRS. It's not violating anything. We don't practice the penitentiary plan, where if you follow this plan, you might end up in the penitentiary. That's not what we do. What we do, and we're not CPAs, we said that already before, but we are here to help you build a tax plan that's to your advantage. So many people come into our office, Kristen, and they say, you know what? They come in for the envision where we see where they are, and then we
Right.
analyze their situation and we show them what we would do if we put in a strategy for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they are absolutely blown away. And the most common answer, especially if they've worked with a big box firm, is, how come my guy, how come my lady has never shown me this, has
Yes.
never talked to me about this? Well, number one, they might not know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, if they work for a big box firm, they might not have been allowed to do tax planning for you because it might mean they get to manage less money because you've already paid tax on the money. And so therefore it looks like you've got less money. And by the way, that's one thing you've got to get over. That's still how much
Mm-hmm.
money you've got. You've just paid tax on the Roth and will never pay tax on it again. And here's the comforting thing. When that Roth grows, it grows, and you can bet every penny of the money that's in that Roth is your money or your heirs' money once you're gone. You want a tax plan that's got your name written on it rather than Uncle Sam and Aunt Iris's name written on it? Then you need to call and you need to get a retirement blueprint from Mosley Wealth Management.
And that number to call to get yours is 888-930-5609. The team of Mosley Wealth Management is committed to providing the most tax-efficient plan for your future, and we encourage you to get one by calling 888-930-5609. Again, this isn't something that can be just sent to you off of a shelf. The invitation is for you to come in. They're going to ask a lot of questions, do a lot of listening, find out what your concerns are, help you anticipate what your potential tax bill might be in retirement, and then devise a plan to help you take steps even now to reduce that. We want you to have the peace of mind of having a solid plan in place no matter what Washington might throw our way. We've talked about how the rules can change a lot. Well, that peace of mind starts with you having a plan. 888-930-5609 is the number to call. Stay with us. We'll be back with more right after this.
At Mosley Wealth Management, we believe that financial planning should be different by design. That's why we don't use a one-size-fits-all approach to retirement planning. Your life and your career has been completely different from that of your neighbors, family, or friends because there is only one you. That's why we believe in taking the time to get to know you, your goals, and your unique financial situation. With Mosley Wealth Management, our team will work with you to develop a comprehensive retirement plan that is tailored to your specific needs. We'll help you identify areas where you can potentially reduce risk and maximize returns, while also addressing potential tax implications that could impact your retirement savings. We believe that financial planning should be transparent, accessible, and easy to understand. That's why we take the time to explain complex financial concepts in simple, straightforward terms. Our goal is to help you make informed decisions and implement strategies that are aimed to help you achieve your financial objectives. With our comprehensive approach to retirement planning, we'll work with you every step of the way to help you work towards achieving your unique retirement goals. At Right on the Money and Mosley Wealth Management, we make retirement planning different by design. Call Tom Mosley and the team at Mosley Wealth Management today for your complimentary retirement blueprint. 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609.
Welcome back, Southern California. You're listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley. We're so glad you're joining us today for this important conversation about the tax avalanche that's looming for most people's retirements. And really, the important thing to understand is that you do have a potential tax bill in retirement, and it may be significantly higher than you realize. Therefore, it starts with awareness, and the team of 𝗏𝗠zley Wealth Management has created an awesome resource for you to use. It's completely free. It previously was only available to existing clients of 𝗏𝗠zley Wealth Management, but Tom and the team are so passionate about getting this information out to you. We've made it available to all of our radio listeners. So here is the site. We invite you to visit 𝗧𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏.com. That's 𝗧𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏.com. Now, once you go to that site, you are going to put in some basic information, no strings attached, including your name, your current age, so that your required minimum distributions can be calculated for you in the future. You're going to put in how much money you currently have saved up in tax-deferred accounts. For you, that could be a 401k, a 403b, or a traditional IRA. You're also going to put in your email address that you want your complimentary report sent to. And then there's a couple things you can adjust down at the bottom of the site. You can adjust your assumed tax liability along with the assumed growth rate on that bucket of tax-deferred money. Then once you click submit, two things are going to happen. Instantly, side by side, you're going to see the difference on the left between the government's tax plan for you if you do nothing versus how much less you could pay in tax if you enact some of these tax saving strategies we are talking about on today's show. But that's not all. You're also going to receive a complimentary 4-page report emailed to you showing you the breakdown of your numbers. Again, all of this and more by visiting 𝗧𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏.com. And Tom, we say this a lot. Once you see that side-by-side comparison and you see the difference between those two numbers, you can't unsee it. There is a tax avalanche coming, and you want to be prepared to navigate through it successfully.
Right. And everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people are talking about Roth conversions, and a lot of people are trying to look up on the internet how to do it. And there's all kind of mistakes that are made. It's one of the things we talk about every time we get together with 𝗏𝗏𝘁 is people on the do-it-yourself side. Go ahead, buddy, because it could really get you in trouble. One guy recently had it all lined up on a $2.1 million 401k where he was going to convert it all over into a Roth, or going to convert some of it over into a Roth. He hit the wrong button and converted it all in 1 year.
Oh my gosh.
And the reason 𝗏𝗏𝘁 found out about it from a do-it-yourselfer is now he's gone to 𝗏𝗏𝘁 to try to get him out of trouble with the IRS and to try to get that reversed so that he didn't do it all in 1 year. The IRS doesn't care because they love it, because that guy now has to pay income tax according to the current status of that case. He has to pay income tax on the entire $2.1 million, all because it was a do-it-yourselfer and he hit the wrong button. So be careful doing Roth conversions. But this Ease My Tax Bill, what that's going to show you is the numbers impact on your dollars as to what you're going to pay if you don't do a Roth conversion and you just pay it out, and versus if you do a Roth conversion. Now, let's delve into that, and that takes us into what we're going to talk about this segment. At the age of 73 right now, you have to start doing what's called required minimum distributions. They're required. Some of you are saying right now, because people do in every one of my events when I bring this up, people say, well, I thought it was 70 and a half. I thought it was 72. And both of you are right. It was, but it's not anymore, because see, the rules have changed. It's now 73. Guess what? If you were born in 1960 or this side of 1960, it's not going to be 73. It's going to be 75 for you. So if I stand on this show or I talk on this show like I've already done this morning, and I say, hey, you got to stay up with the rule changes, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's been two other things in the past 5 years. It's 73 right now, and in 5 more years, it's going to be something else. So you've got to pay attention to what the laws are and where the laws are and what they're requiring. So at 73, you've got a minimum that's got to come out of all of your IRAs and your 401ks. What is it not? It is not ever a percentage. It's never 4% or 5%. It's always a factor. which means they take the Uniform Life Expectancy table, which changes every year. How long are you expected to live from that age?
Right.
And you divide that into the amount of money you have in qualified money. You say, all of my qualified money, 401ks and IRAs? Yeah, but there's a trick to that. If you've got more than one 401k, which some of you do, you need to consolidate. But if you've got more than one 401k, something has to come out of each of those. If you've got 3 IRAs, you can add what should come out of each of those IRAs and take it all out of one. You can consolidate those, the IRAs, but you cannot consolidate any 4 plans, not just the 401ks, but the 403bs or the 457s. They all start with a 4.
And
See
I just want to clarify, Tom, you can aggregate or not aggregate versus consolidating, right? Is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Consolidate is a better term for bringing the two together.
Correct.
Okay. And
Yep.
just merging the two. Aggregate means you can keep 3 different IRAs, but there's an amount that should come out of each of those at your age. You calculate that amount, add it all up, and you can aggregate that and take it out of one of the IRAs. Okay. But here's the thing, that money that comes out at 73 or 75 down the road, you cannot put that money into a Roth IRA. You say, wait a minute, I've already paid tax on it. Right, but you can't convert that into an IRA. Why not? It's another little trick, because you've got to put that money, if you don't need it, into an after-tax account. You say, wait a minute, that after-tax account, as it grows, I'm still going to have to pay capital gains tax. Right.
Mhm.
That's the government's plan, for you to pay money as it comes out of the IRA. You're still here but don't need it, so you put it into an after-tax account. So the government gets to tax you again on capital gains, and then bingo, when you pass away, whatever's left in it, if you just follow the government's plan, whatever's left in your IRA and your 401k, your heirs, if they're your children, have 10 years to take it out. If they're your spouse or your children, if they're your non-spouse and not your children, they're your nephews, your nieces, they've got 5 years to take it out and pay the tax on it. What's the common chord that the government is singing here? They're all singing the same chorus on all of this. Pay the tax, pay the
Mhm.
tax, pay the tax, and you pay tax over and over and over again. So that's what happens with the government's plan. Now, what's the alternative? Let's talk about the Roth conversion. If you systematically, let's say you retire at age 65 and your income, recently had a couple, their income was going from $300,000 down to about $80,000 a year.
Okay. Because they were no
Okay.
longer working, right?
They were no longer working and they needed $80,000 a year coming in. Now, if they were taking that money out of a after-tax annuity, let's talk about that.
Mhm.
It's got its own little rules. All the growth that comes out of that after-tax annuity is going to be taxed right up front. It's the last in, and the last in was the growth. So that's going to be taxed right up front. And then when they get down to their basis as to what they actually put into the annuity, they're not taxed on it anymore, but right off the bat, they would be taxed on that. Okay. So
Mhm.
that's one way they get taxed. The other way to do this is at 65, for you to take 80,000 and say, wow, we've got 20 more thousand in the 22% tax bracket, and we've got about another $170,000 we could take out of the IRA, pay extra tax on it, and still be in the 24% tax bracket. You say, why would I want to pay extra tax? Because that 22% tax bracket's going to 25. That 24% tax bracket is likely going to 28.
Mhm.
Laws may change, rules may change, okay? But
Right.
right now, that's the rules. Both of them, next year, you're going to have to pay more tax to get that same amount of money out. So harvesting that out now and paying the tax on it now, getting it into a Roth, and as we've said repeatedly on this show, the word for Roth taxation is never. You're
Mhm.
never taxed on it again.
Right.
Your heirs are never taxed on it again. And the word for IRA and 401 taxation is forever. As long as you're having to draw that money out, you are forever being taxed on it at your regular income rate, many times driving your income into a higher unwanted tax bracket. You see how the plan works for the government. It drives you into a higher tax bracket, and you will forever pay tax on that. And you are not allowed to put the money that comes out for RMDs, required minimum distributions, into a Roth unless you have earned income and can qualify. You say, boy, a lot of this is confusing. I'm not trying to be confusing. I'm trying to be very plain about it. It is confusing, and you have to be sure. We run everything through a software, so we make sure we're doing what's right for our clients when it comes to capital gains, your income tax rates, and your Roth conversions. Do you want professional help in tax planning, not tax just preparation? You've got to pick up the phone, call us, become one of our clients. We help all of our clients pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes.
Tom, thank you so much. We've covered so much on today's episode. And if you are feeling that weight, literally, of that impending tax avalanche that could be coming your way, we encourage you. You don't have to go this alone. The team of 𝗏𝗟 Wealth Management is here to help and serve you and help you pay the least amount of tax you are legally required to pay. We encourage you to visit 𝗍𝗏𝑚yTaxBill.com. Again, you'll see your numbers and what your potential tax bill might be in retirement versus how much less you could pay in tax if you enact these tax saving strategies. And we are confident once you see those numbers, you're definitely going to want to reach out, if you have not already, to receive your very own complimentary retirement blueprint. 888-930-5609 is the number to call to schedule yours. Hey, thanks so much for joining us this weekend. We appreciate you being here. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and we look forward to being back with you next time here on Right on the Money with Tom Mosley.
Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through 𝗏𝗟 Wealth Management Incorporated. 𝗏𝗟 Wealth Management and 𝗏𝗟 Insurance and Financial Services are affiliated companies by common ownership license number OB61811. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refers to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength, claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. This content is intended for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the needs of an individual situation. All hypothetical examples are provided for illustrative purposes only. They do not represent real-life scenarios. 𝗏𝗟 Insurance and Financial Services, nor its agents or representatives, may give tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with a qualified professional for guidance before making any investment decisions. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. Some of the information provided may be from one or more third parties, which we believe to be reliable sources, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by 𝗏𝗟 Insurance and Financial Services.